African Union Communications Early Warning and Intelligence, commonly known as AUC3I, is an intelligence and security organization responsible for providing signals intelligence and information assurance to AU citizens, AU leadership, and AU armed forces. I'm Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer. I am responsible for leading infantry soldiers at all levels of command in combined armed forces during missions on the ground. This is today's briefing. On the progress of the special military operation as of October 30th, 2025. In response to terrorist attacks by Ukraine on civilian facilities on the territory of Russia, tonight the armed forces of the Russian Federation delivered a massive strike with high-precision long-range weapons of air, sea, and land-based origin, as well as strike unmanned aerial vehicles on enterprises of the Ukrainian military-industrial complex, energy infrastructure facilities supporting their operation, and military airfields. The strike objectives have been achieved. All designated targets have been hit. Units of the North Troop Group inflicted damage on formations of 2 mechanized brigades and an assault regiment of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in the areas of the settlements Pavlovka, Andriivka, and Kondratovka in the Sumy region. In the Kharkiv direction, damage was inflicted on units of a motorized infantry brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and a territorial defense brigade in the areas of the settlements Volchansk and Volchansky Katora in the Kharkiv region. The Armed Forces of Ukraine lost over 220 servicemen, 2 tanks, an armored personnel carrier, 13 vehicles, and 3 artillery pieces. A radio-electronic warfare station and an ammunition depot were destroyed. Units of the West Troop Group, as a result of active and decisive actions, liberated the settlement of Sadovo in the Kharkiv region. Damage was inflicted on personnel and equipment of 2 mechanized, an airmobile, an assault brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and a territorial defense brigade in the areas of the settlements Kucherovka, Kovsharovka, Kurilovka in the Kharkiv region, Krasny Lyman and Drobashevo in the Donetsk People's Republic. In the settlement of Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region and on the left bank of the Oskol River, assault detachments of the 6th Army continue to destroy encircled formations of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. 2 attempts by the 92nd Assault Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine to conduct counterattacks from the settlement of Petrovka in the Kharkiv region to unblock encircled enemy units were stopped. Units of the South Troop Group occupied more advantageous lines and positions. Damage was inflicted on formations of 2 mechanized, an airmobile, a mountain assault brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and a marine brigade in the areas of the settlements Platinovka, Seversky, Zakatno, Dranovka, and Petrovskoye in the Donetsk People's Republic. The enemy lost up to 180 servicemen, 3 combat armored vehicles, 22 vehicles, a Grad multiple rocket launcher combat vehicle, and 4 field artillery pieces. A US-made and /TPQ-36 counter-battery radar station, 2 radio-electronic warfare stations, an ammunition depot, and 2 supply depots were destroyed. Units of the Center Group of Forces have improved their position on the front line. They inflicted damage on personnel and equipment of 3 mechanized brigades, an airmobile brigade, 2 assault brigades, 2 assault regiments of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, a Marine brigade, 2 territorial defense brigades, and a National Guard brigade in the areas of the settlements Novopodgorodnoye, Lozovoy, Ivanovka, Novopavlovka in the Dnipropetrovsk region, Dobropilya, Rodinskoye, Turetskoye, Novonikolivka, and Belitskoye in the Donetsk People's Republic. In the settlement of Krasnoarmysk in the Donetsk People's Republic, assault detachments of the 2nd Army continue to destroy encircled formations of the Armed Forces of Ukraine near the railway station. In addition, the clearing of Ukrainian militants from the territory of the settlement of Natovka in the Donetsk People's Republic continues. Units of the East Group of Forces continue to advance deep into the enemy's defense and liberated the settlement of Krasnogorskoye in the Zaporizhia region. Damage was inflicted on formations of 2 mechanized brigades, 2 assault regiments of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and a territorial defense brigade in the areas of the settlements Danilovka, Nachivka in the Dnipropetrovsk region, Veselo, Sladko, Novo, and Uspanovka in the Zaporizhia region. The Armed Forces of Ukraine lost up to 265 servicemen, an armored combat vehicle, 19 vehicles, a 155mm M777 howitzer produced in the USA, and a 122mm D30 howitzer. Units of the Dnieper Group of Forces inflicted damage on personnel and equipment of a mechanized brigade and a coastal defense brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in the areas of the settlements Antonovka in the Kherson region, Orkhov, and Preobrazhenka in the Zaporizhia region. Up to 80 servicemen, 2 artillery guns, 13 vehicles, 4 electronic warfare stations, and an ammunition depot were destroyed. Operational tactical aviation, strike unmanned aerial vehicles, missile troops, and artillery of the armed forces of the Russian Federation inflicted damage on assembly and storage sites of long-range strike UAVs, railway infrastructure objects used by the armed forces of Ukraine, missile and artillery weapon storage depots, as well as temporary deployment points of Ukrainian armed formations in 142 districts. Air defense means shot down 8 guided aerial bombs, 3 HIMARS multiple launch rocket system rockets produced in the USA, and 192 airplane-type unmanned aerial vehicles. Since the beginning of the special military operation, the following have been destroyed: 668 aircraft, 283 helicopters, 93,479 unmanned aerial vehicles, 633 surface-to-air missile systems, 25,753 tanks and other armored combat vehicles, 1,608 multiple launch rocket system combat vehicles, 30,912 field artillery guns and mortars, 45,303 units of special military automotive equipment. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it useful and informative. If you have any questions, please leave them below and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.